Adrian N. Breitfelder, City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council to be held on Monday, August 19th, 2024 at 5:15 p.m. in the historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting work sessions on the regional workforce landscape and Imagine Dubuque.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for August 19th, 2024. As a reminder to viewers and listeners, due to the nature of tonight's meeting topic, public input is not accepted. However, you may contact the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/council contacts. Attendance for the session is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh?
Here.
Council members Farber?
Here.
Resnick?
Here.
Roussel?
Here.
Sprank?
Here.
Wethel?
Here.
And City Attorney Brumwell.
Here.
Thank you. Our first work session topic is the regional workforce landscape and other initiatives. I will turn it over to Greater Dubuque Development Corporation President and CEO Rick Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, City Manager Van Milligan, most excellent city staff. My name is Rick Dickinson. I have the pleasure of serving as the president of Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, and I reside at 205 Hill Street here in Dubuque. This evening, Nick Hockenberry from our team and I are here to provide a quarterly report, which is part of the agreement we have with the city in exchange for your support and the collaboration that we have. In order to better inform the citizens of Dubuque of our activities, we meet with you on a quarterly basis, usually during a regularly scheduled meeting. But tonight, since we had a lot of content, we decided to have a work session. I appreciate you providing that to us. And we're titling this presentation our Regional Workforce Landscape. We will be talking about our Next Gen survey, which I'll explain in a bit. Nick will be sharing with you our labor shed analysis, our skills gap analysis, and other tools we use to understand what the workforce situation is in the greater Dubuque area. That's more than Dubuque, that's Dubuque County and adjoining counties. And we'll be talking about child care and some details about the tremendous success that this community and our county has enjoyed in regard to broadband expansion, thanks to the work with our partners at the City of Dubuque and Dubuque County, headed up by David Lyons, contracted by our office. So let me begin with the Next Gen Perception Survey. We decided a year ago that it was important to have a better understanding of what our citizens expected in any community, including our own. And also, did this community and others in the greater Dubuque area meet those expectations? It started with our reaching out to our Talent Dubuque group. Those are college interns that are in Dubuque for the summer, working at multiple different employers in the market. We reached out to them because we have a series of events for them to get them to understand and know and appreciate our community, meet other interns, develop relationships and friendships, and to increase the likelihood that those individuals consider Dubuque for their employment post-graduation. So we did a beta test with them and asked a series of questions, and the success of that caused us to launch on November 1st the Next Gen survey, which I'm providing the results to you this evening. We launched the survey on November 1st, and we took responses through December 15th. We reached out to local institutions of higher learning, all of our high schools in the Dubuque market, young professional groups, AccessDubuqueJobs.com, workforce investors, Distinctively Dubuque alumni. Distinctively Dubuque is a class that we provide to newcomers, over 100 newcomers per year. We've done that for over a decade. Community organizations, Greater Dubuque Development Communications through emails, direct email, boosted social media, and print ads. At the close of the survey, we had 2,061 results. 90% provided us with demographic information, which we greatly appreciated to help us better understand the data. The breakdown by race and ethnicity reflected the data that we have in U.S. Census. The first outcome I'd like to share with you is what are the top communities we're competing with? I think sometimes we misunderstand things. Well, they want to go to, you name it, Minneapolis, Detroit, Miami, anywhere across the country, when in fact, Most of our competition is within a 200-mile radius of Dubuque. Our strongest competitor would be Madison, Wisconsin. Next, Iowa City, Coralville. Next, Des Moines. Chicago does hit the ranks as a major metro because of its proximity to Dubuque, and Cedar Rapids. And that's our competition. So when we talk about retaining and recruiting workforce, this is the low-hanging fruit, those individuals who seek opportunities at those communities. We also asked them how are they considering staying in the greater Dubuque region, which seems to be a logical question. 60+% said yes. I don't know if Danny can read those numbers or not on that chart. It look a little funky to me. But it's about 60 some percent were yes, 12% were a hard no, and 25% were maybe. Our goal is to hit that 25%. If there's a possibility, how can we nail that down? How can we appeal to those folks to identify the greater Dubuque area as the place for their opportunity? Next opportunity. Why are you planning to stay? I'm going to go through this. It's a narrative. It's a summary of the data we received from over 2,000 folks. And we'll start with proximity to family. There's a large component of this that's influenced by the fact that they have family in Dubuque. Again, we polled people in the greater Dubuque area. This isn't polling nationally, what do you think of Dubuque, Iowa? It's talking to the people who are already here for whatever reason. Job and career opportunities is a strong draw. Sense of community. A significant number of respondents expressed appreciation for the sense of community in Dubuque, mentioning established social networks, friendships, and feeling of belonging. Quality of life. People mentioned various aspects of contributing to their quality of life, such as low cost of living, good schools, safety, access to amenities and outdoor activities. Familiarity with or attachment to the area. Again, this related to the fact that many of these respondents have family here or were raised here or have spent a great deal of time in Dubuque already. Why are you planning to stay again? Love all the variety of things to do here. Lots of outdoor activities and lots of fun business popping up. I enjoy Dubuque and my family is here once again. I love that my family is near. I am overall happy with the amenities available and I'm close to my family. Dubuque is a nice size. It has everything I need, but is not super busy. I really enjoy all the events that are open to the public, especially the town clock music events and farmers market. Why are you considering leaving? A logical question. Limited job opportunities. That's always a mixed bag. The question isn't whether there's a job opening in Dubuque. The question is whether that job opening is right for that particular individual. So a diverse economy is critical in having employment be a draw for the community. Seeking diversity and cultural opportunities. There is a common theme of wanting to live in more diverse and cultural rich environments, with some respondents feeling that Dubuque does not provide the diversity or cultural amenities they desire and expect. Preference for urban environment. A significant number of respondents expressed a desire to live in larger or more urban cities, citing reasons such as faster paced lifestyle, more amenities, a broader range of culture, and recreational opportunities. Educational pursuits. Even though we have the treasure of higher education in our market, some folks just want to get out of town and spread their wings. So many individuals mentioned leaving Dubuque for educational reasons, either to attend colleges elsewhere or pursue higher education in locations perceived as offering better academic and career opportunities. Personal growth and exploration. Several respondents expressed a desire for personal growth, new experiences, and exploration, indicating a feeling of being held back or limited in Dubuque. I'm leaving Dubuque for a more fast-paced environment. Boston offers more opportunities for lifestyles that Dubuque doesn't. Not to mention, I can make a greater impact on a community that aligns with my personal goals and lifestyles. I am not happy. Unfriendly people, nothing to do. I feel like the town of Dubuque is just extremely old. The events, shopping, restaurants, and culture is rooted around an older generation, especially considering this is a college town. It has a way older feel than like Cedar Falls or Ames or Iowa City. As a queer person, there's no community here for me. And honestly, I don't feel safe anymore. The city is pretty, but it's very run down and old, so the new generation has nothing exciting, new, or pretty. There's also isn't a lot of diversity here. There is no sense of culture. I grew up here, and there are not many opportunities to grow. Now this, as you can see, is a mixed bag. It depends so much on the individual's experience. But it also tells us that we have to be for everyone in our community if we are to grow. What would sway your decision to stay? Again, employment opportunities. Numerous respondents mentioned job-related factors such as finding good-paying jobs. Housing affordability, major issue. The cost and availability of housing are significant concerns, with mentions of expensive housing and the need for affordable rentals and difficulty in finding suitable housing. Community amenities and entertainment. Residents expressed a desire for more activities, amenities, including entertainment options, recreational facilities, and diverse dining and shopping experiences. Family and relationships. Family-related factors such as proximity to family, family decisions, and the overall environment for raising children play a critical role in the decision to stay or leave, or in some cases to return. Families, individuals that leave, find a significant other, children are part of their lives, and being closer to a built-in babysitter has tremendous draw for some folks, and we'd have to be able to make sure that that's an opportunity for them here in Dubuque. And diversity and inclusivity. Some respondents highlight the importance of diversity, inclusivity, and community values, expressing concerns about the lack of opportunities for people from different backgrounds. It should be mentioned, too, that when they looked at Madison and Iowa City as attractive versus Dubuque, they also mentioned the culture of those communities being more liberal was the word they used. More inclusive was also a word that they used. Other things that would sway the decision for leaving, the cost of housing and overall living cost. Housing is a big factor again. Mostly what will sway me is the ability to find work once I'm out of school, as well as affordable housing if I can find a good job here. Many of these things we're addressing, as you know. Housing in particular. Childcare is going to be coming up, broadband expansion, being a community of choice. Other things that would sway you, job opportunities, outdoor activities, whether I can find an affordable land that meets my needs, family, job, pay, housing. The pay for my career is a huge factor. Focusing on my career, affordability of living, and job opportunities will significantly sway my decision. We also then asked folks, identify that which is most important to you in your community. That's the blue line on this chart. We then asked them to rank from 1 to 5. What is the delivery of that expectation in our community? Top line is what they're looking for, blue. Green line is what they find in the community from their perspective. This was limited to those respondents who were 30 years of age or younger. If anybody thought it was going to be cool, wild stuff that's attracting their community, they'd be wrong. The first 10 items here as top priorities are, I would define as meat and potato issues. Expectations of a quality of life that everybody needs if they're going to make the community as their choice. Number 1, access to quality health care. 2, affordable home ownership. Great schools and education. Low crime rate, variety of restaurant choices, affordable quality rental housing, natural features, farmers markets, shopping, commercial districts, pet-friendly community. Pet-friendly came up a lot, and I know we're trying to be a more pet-friendly community, but I think we have a long way to go. I noticed just a couple weeks ago I was up at Eagle Point Park, and pets are not allowed there. Despite what some politicians might say, pets are a major part of our lives. And if we can't bring our pets, then sometimes we don't go either. And so pet-friendly is one of the major criteria that people have as an expectation of a quality community that they wish to call home. You can also see in some of these preferences or needs to be present in the community, you're seeing quite a gap between the expectation and how they would define its availability. Then we get into less meat and potatoes and more quality of life. fitness and health centers, environmental conscious community, hiking, biking trails, walkable community with live-work neighborhoods, access to affordable childcare, short commute times, public parks and golf courses, near my family, outdoor recreation, diverse communities. Now, when you get into this criteria, you'll see that especially from short commutes to parks and golf courses and near my family, the expectation is nearly met. There's not a gap between that expectation and the perception of its availability within the community. And it gets even closer to that when you get into event centers, live music options, organized recreational leagues, nightlife, arts and culture, museums, proximity to large metro areas, skiing, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, bikeable communities, low-cost access to public transportation. In some of these cases, we actually have more product or more availability of this expectation than the expectation. And then minor league sports, professional organizations, religious opportunities, religious worship opportunities, country clubs, resorts, casinos. What this is telling us is changes in society. There's far more religious opportunities in Dubuque than it is an expectation of that individual we surveyed. There are far more casinos available in our community than the expectation of those 30 and other that we surveyed. Next, I'd like to have Nick Hockenberry come up to talk to you about some of the workforce data we have, and we'll be glad to answer questions at the end, and we're going to honor that 45-minute cutoff date. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nick Hockenberry. I'm the Director of Workforce Programming at Greater Dubuque Development. And as Rick said, I'm going to talk through some of the studies and analyses that we use to set our book of work as it relates to workforce initiatives in this community. So I'd just also like to point out that Greater Dubuque is unique amongst economic development organizations in that we have been doing this work, focusing on workforce as a function of economic development for over a decade. This is now sort of the cool thing to do across the state and across the region, but it is important in that we've learned a lot along the way and how best to direct our efforts, our resources, and our work in general. So importantly, the work that we do is data-driven, and I'm going to walk through two specific analyses and then talk a little bit about how that impacts our strategic work and dive a little bit deeper into two programs that are functioning based on the information that we learned from these studies. The skills gap analysis, this is an annual report that we do in partnership with Northeast Iowa Community College, as well as our regional partners at Southwest Wisconsin Technical College, as well as Highland Community College in Illinois. And then the latter is the Labor Shed study. This is in partnership with the Iowa Workforce Development Labor Market Information Division. They typically do this on an every other year basis. COVID kind of messed up the schedule, so our most recent one just came out this year. So the skills gap analysis. This, in sort of as a thumbnail, and we'll return to this too, compares the jobs available in our community, broken down by specific occupation code, compared to graduations or completions in both credit and non-credit instruction at higher education institutions. So it compares the jobs, the skilled jobs that we have in the market, and are we graduating enough folks with those skills to meet those? Where we aren't, those are called skills gaps. The work's driven in part thanks to the support of the City of Dubuque and the county, as well as the DRA, through our Dubuque Works partners. This is a collaborative initiative of nonprofits, higher ed institutions, state and federal workforce development individuals, and the nonprofit community in this area, client-facing and resident-facing folks. So the parameters of the study here, I'll point out what Rick mentioned. Our region, the Greater Dubuque region, is more than Dubuque County. It is the Jackson, Jones, and the adjacent counties around Dubuque County, including Illinois, Joe Davies in Illinois and Grant County in Wisconsin. And this isn't arbitrary. This is based on relevant data. So we know in Joe Davies County, for instance, nearly 25% of their working age population commutes into the Dubuque metro every day to work. In Jackson County, it's over 21%. In Jones County, it's over 15. So this is a reflection of the interchange of people and commerce in our region. So in this study, we focus on the last 10 years. We do this annually, but we look at the last 10 years as the basis for our projection into the future. And so you'll see here two main areas of focus: employment and working age population. Across this region, you'll see that we've had employment growth in the last 10 years since 2013, and stagnation, we'll say, at best, for working age population. If we zoom in a little further, Dubuque's metropolitan statistical area drives employment growth and is the working age population growth for the region. As I said, that's the basis for our projections into the next 10 years. So you'll see here that top line, the maroon line there, being working age population. We'll call that stable over the next 10 years. It's the projection across the region, and continued job growth. If we zoom in again for the Dubuque MSA, again, that population growth is Dubuque County. And job growth is looking even more favorable for this market as well. Rural counties are growing older fast, our rural communities are growing older faster, and job growth is following the people. We break down the job growth by our top 8 industries here, top 8 industries by census of employment, and then looking at the projection across those industries for employment growth in the next 10 years. You'll see healthcare being our largest industry by total employment in the region, and manufacturing second, but also the fastest growing in the region. So to the meat of the analysis, within those industries, these are the top 20 skills gaps. So these are areas, or these are jobs that are not seeing the graduate growth in our region to meet the demand. There are over 360 specific occupation codes. We have a full report that is available to you, of course, if you want to dive into this further. Importantly, when we enumerate our skills gaps, you'll see one of those occupations has an asterisk and is italicized, and that is childcare workers. So our focus is on occupations that pay a family-sustaining wage, $15 or more. Childcare workers in our market do not. But we do see them as critical because they impact every other one of these occupations in our market. If folks don't have somewhere to take their kids, they aren't going to be our accountants or accounting clerks. So that is one instance where you'll see that show up where otherwise under $15 an hour jobs will not. Just some key takeaways that I summarize here. Job growth continues to outpace the working age population growth. Education amongst our labor force increases year over year. That will continue a positive trend for our region. There are skills gaps across all industries. No one is free from this. These skills gaps in the healthcare industry to manufacturing to professional services, they are barriers for growth in those industries. College population remains a critical component for recruitment. And in the next 10 years, we expect that there will still be a demand for lower skilled or entry-level positions in this market too. Now, how does that help drive our strategic initiatives or strategies to address some of these pieces. And I'll just highlight the 4 that come out of this analysis most acutely to close those skills gap. Transportation barrier elimination, whether that is public transit, aligning the public transit systems across the region to employment centers, or whether that is planning for transportation investments between employment centers and residential centers across this region. Realizing that possibility of the college population, over 70% of the 18,000 students who come into our region on an annual basis are from out of market. So the reality there is that a lot of work has been done for us to retain them in our community and have net growth in our population for what are skilled workers when they're coming out of our education institutions. K through 12 engagement, understanding that we do need to grow our own and increase their awareness of the opportunities here in our market, and targeting skills development to meet that market demand, to address those skills gaps. And we'll talk more about that in our program Opportunity Dubuque in a little bit here. I'm going to keep running. It's a lot of data. As I said, please reach out if you want to dive into these further. The next study that I'm going to highlight here is a unique study that the Iowa Workforce Development Labor Market Information Division does in partnership with us. That is our labor shed analysis. We help work with the employer outreach as it relates to this. But just so you understand sort of the unique nature of this analysis, they reach out to major employers within the city of Dubuque, and they ask them, where do their employees live? They get that data by zip code. And they understand that map that you see there is the distribution of their workers for city of Dubuque resided business establishments. And then they turn the study around and they actually do resident outreach and then weight those responses proportional to how the employment or the labor shed employment analysis says they should be by zip code. So it's really a twofold process, but yields some really interesting information from a business perspective as an employer in our market on how they can draw those workers who might be considering leaving employment outside of, or leaving employment at an employer outside of the city of Dubuque, and what would pull them in. And so I will walk through just a couple of takeaways. Importantly, there is a print summary, an executive summary, but the real data is in their interactive links that are housed on the Iowa Workforce Development website, as well as ours, where we share this information. But a couple of the takeaways, I think the number one, which as a former small business owner that I was interested in, was of these people spoken to, reached by the Iowa Workforce Development, how many are likely to change, or if they're unemployed, to accept employment at a city of Dubuque residing establishment? And that is 32.8%. Now that amounts to nearly 40,000 people. That is a real pool of workers, untapped workers, for our employers to connect with. And so importantly, what would help them make that decision? And that's the next piece here. So there are a number of ways that you can cut this data, but this one I find important because what are the wage expectations of those folks to consider employment within a business in the city of Dubuque? And this breaks it down by occupation or by industry. You'll see the greenish color bar there being the hourly wages that they did receive. And then the orange line there, they're willing to expect the lowest hourly rate they're willing to accept to be pulled into the market. The takeaway here is that the expectations are not outsized. They are in line with the median hourly wage within those industries. How about the benefits side? So this is where they asked the residents what important benefits or what benefits are important to them for them to consider employment. And you'll see the top three being paid vacation, retirement, and health insurance. If you're on, I don't have a slide for this, but this is the desired benefit, but the received benefit is not much different. The only difference there is paid sick leave replaces paid vacation, then it's retirement and health insurance. So again, the expectations for benefits for this pool to accept employment in this area are not unreasonable. That was real quick and dirty on those two areas of analysis, but I do want to just highlight here, they are the context in which we focus our resources and strategic areas of activity. This is a list here as it relates to workforce development efforts. Opportunity Dubuque, a skilled training program in partnership with NICC to help meet some of those skills gaps, supported again by the City of Dubuque, Dubuque County, and the DRA, supporting tuition as well as student supports while they are enrolled in the program so that they can successfully complete and gain employment in that field of study. Transportation initiatives, whether that's working with the Jewel on creating a commute route out to the West End Industrial Park or the Kerper Corridor all the way out to Deer, aligning those public resources with the needs for our commuting population, or it is Regional Transit Authority's Region 8, their initiative right now for workforce transportation and in partnership with employers and enterprise. Or if it's nonprofits like Tri-State VATs, who are more focused on the Latinx population, providing employment work. If we can align all of those resources with the needs that are outlined in these data sets, we can move the needle on eliminating transportation as a barrier. Childcare, I'll touch on a little bit more in a second. College and university engagement. As I said, 18,000 folks, young folks, come into this community from throughout the country, 70% of them being out of market. That is an opportunity for us to do what we do best in this region, is sell the community and the quality of life that they could have here post-graduation. So how do we engage with them more? Many of you are aware of our work in partnership with the City of Dubuque to do a college welcome letter that went out. It's actually hitting mailboxes right now in the families of new students throughout this region. We've seen engagement from those letters already, so we'll be excited to highlight those outcomes going forward here. And then the last one I'll just mention here is, unfortunately, layoff and closure outreach through what's known as WARN events. We've been engaged in that very closely in the last number of years. I serve as a part of the local rapid response, in part because of my position on the Northeast Iowa Workforce Development Board. So getting in front of those impacted workers and trying to retain them here is incredibly important, because we don't want to lose the talent that's already been engaged in our employers in this region. But importantly, we are also targeting in very specific ways out-of-market layoff events and closures. We were represented up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, when 2 hospitals closed, as well as a clinic system, impacting over 1,000 workers, highlighting, with the help of our employers here and AccessDubuqueJobs.com, the opportunities for them to locate here. We went out to Perry, Iowa, for the Tyson's manufacturing plant closure, highlighting the opportunities in the food manufacturing and manufacturing in general right here in Dubuque. Being represented at those impacted worker meetings is important, because if we don't share the opportunities here, they won't find out about them. So I'm going to highlight here real quickly the outcomes from our last fiscal year in Opportunity Dubuque. As I mentioned, the skills gap analysis identifies what short-term certificates of training we are going to focus our support on. So Northeast Iowa Community College offers many more than just those listed on the screen here, but these are the ones that we justify based on the skills gap analysis, as well as the business outreach that Jason in our office leads with the support of Dan and Mandy, meeting with HR professionals as well as our CEOs and plant managers. We want to know if the data is real. And so importantly, these are the certificates that are identified for this next fiscal year, from a certified nursing aide all the way to a welder. These are the needs that we have that can be met by an existing certificate program. So, outcomes. We had over 287 enrollees between July of 2023 and the end of June of 2024 in one of those certificates of training. 180 of those enrolled completed. And importantly, we track employment in their field of study, not just any employment, in their field of study or continuing education. And we saw of those 189 students that completed, 89% of them were employed in that field or continued their education in that field. Dubuque Works, the collaborative of workforce organizations that is supported by the city of Dubuque and Dubuque County as well as the DRA, we funded directly 38 students' tuition. Aside from the supports in the 2 college and career coaches housed at NICC to make sure that they successfully graduate, direct tuition for CDL training, those certified nurses aides, customer service representatives, we helped pay for 38 of those in this last fiscal year. Since 2011, we've had over 3,900 enroll. We've had completions of nearly 3,300 in these skilled training programs. And that employment and continuing ed rate is even better than this last year at 93%. And Dubuque Works has directly funded the tuition of 339 of those students. And importantly, these students, the tuition that is supported, they would not have enrolled otherwise. These are last dollars in. So if they qualify for other scholarships, other state programs, other scholarships at NICC, we do not pay at the outset. These are folks who would not otherwise enroll because of financial barriers. And I just point out that we, as Greater Dubuque, and through the support of the city and the county and the DRA, are the highest, or the largest source of third-party funding for Northeast Iowa Community College's certificates of training, more than the state of Iowa. And this is a way that we lead in this region in this directed program. We just started asking for this data more recently. So this is the residency of the students. In the last fiscal year, you'll see that map on the left. And then overall, since 2011, this is where the folks' mailing address was for who were enrolled in Opportunity Dubuque programs. I think importantly, I'd call out the all-time enrollment. Generally, over 80%, these are Dubuque County students, residing students, especially at our community colleges. But I think that all-time map reflects very closely the overlay of that labor shed analysis, proving again that Dubuque serves as the employment as well as the education center for this region. All right, so I'm gonna shift real hard into another important workforce barrier here, and that is childcare, and childcare solutions importantly. I think many people have heard me share my story with childcare and how it's impacted my family. You know, when my wife and I had our first child, my wife had to leave the workforce because we had that conversation with providers with over a year of a wait list for infant care. Those are hard decisions, but it's an illustrative example of how this can impact the workforce, quality of life, and productivity of our labor force in the Dubuque area. But what did Greater Dubuque do about this issue? It was highlighted by our employers, we studied it, and then we acted on the opportunities. So you'll see here, Dubuque Initiatives was awarded from ARPA dollars directed by the state of Iowa for child care facility creation. Cottingham and Butler, private employer, utilized our study to also secure dollars for their project here within the city of Dubuque. And then our partners, our colleagues out in Dyersville, did a very similar mix, an employer supported child care center in an industrial park and received that funding. C&B, as many of you know, have driven by. They're well underway on their construction. Dyersville is nearing the end of their construction. And Dubuque Initiatives project, the Bright Minds Learning Center in the West End Industrial Park, was the first in the state to utilize these grant dollars and open up. They opened up on January 8th and have led the way in this initiative. But importantly, my wife worked in childcare. Buildings don't take care of our kids. The people, the workers, the childcare professionals do. And we saw, even with the creation of these facilities, we would not meet the need. The number of childcare professionals in the last 5 years ahead of these grants had decreased by almost 20%. They were the lowest paid category of worker, of skilled worker, in Dubuque's MSA. We know that that doesn't reflect the value that these workers have in our community, and it's no wonder that the workforce overall was decreasing. So what could we do, understanding the problem, to make it move the needle in the right direction? And that was to again grab hold of an opportunity. In this case, it was a state grant for $560,000 as long as we could match it, 2-to-1 in our favor here locally. And yes, we are very happy to report that we have a fund to support the recruitment, retention, and development of child care professionals right now in Dubuque County of $1.3, nearly $1.4 million. It's supporting 18 child care centers throughout the county. And to date, we've only run the program since March in earnest. We've had 38 new child care professionals hired and increased slots throughout the county by 144. These are our champions of childcare. These businesses here came to the table, are part of $114,000 raised locally to support this work and to increase the capacity here because they know it's important for their workforce. I'll hand it back over to Rick here to close. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. In the interest of time, we'll be closing. We're glad to answer a couple questions if you have them, but we did want to present an update on the broadband expansion, which is a tremendous story to tell. And if you don't mind, I'll wait until the public comment to provide that in respect for the future presenters. Any questions?
We do. Thank you, first of all, very much. This was an incredible amount and very useful information, so thank you very much. We'd have time for one question, so I'd open it up for one. Yeah, Mr. Resnick, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So top skills gap, 75% of those gaps are blue-collar jobs. Mm-hmm. And of course, the colleges recruit future white-collar jobs. So it seems that it looks like that for those workers to uproot their lives and move to Dubuque, it's got to be worth their while. If you pay them, they will come. And is it more than that?
It is. In today's world, it's not just the job. It's the house, it's the child care, it's the entertainment venues, it's whether or not you are a community of choice. And in the things that we've displayed here in your deliberations and establishing goals, I hope that this list of things are in those goals, because without public support, citizen taxpayer support for these types of initiatives to create a community of choice, we will not be able to expand our workforce, our jobs, our opportunities, and be that community that we long to be. So it's much more than the job itself. We are hitting the wall on population and workforce, no doubt about it. We're more successful in our competition, but that's not good enough. We have to double down, figure out where our greatest investments can be with the greatest return, and realize that it's a mutual effort between the public sector, the private sector, and the philanthropic community. And only with full involvement and engagement by all three, personally and financially, will we be the community we must be.
All right, well, Rick and Nick, thank you very much for taking the time to spend with us tonight. This was incredibly helpful, and I do think it will be very useful in our discussions and goal setting that begins tomorrow, so thank you.
Nick mentioned the welcome letter that goes out to the colleges, and he mentioned some feedback or interaction, and I'd be curious to understand what kind of interaction you get from parents or students from that initial touch.
It's a combination of appreciation and surprise. I can't believe the mayor of Dubuque would take the time to write the family a letter and tell them we'll take care of the thing they love the most, which is their children. And of course, it's the beginning of the process of showing the love even before they set foot on campus, instead of waiting until the day they step off the dais upon graduation. So it's well received, it's unique, and we have communities all over the country calling us and finding out, how do you get the mayor to do something like that? You ask him and he says yes. You have to have the right mayor.
When you made me hand write every single one, it was really challenging.
I did want to just touch on a tremendous achievement that was mentioned, and that's broadband. Wally and et al. Imagine Dubuque, and I wanted to just talk about that a bit. I don't see it up here.
There it is.
There we go. Part of the workforce planning for Greater Dubuque Development is creating the ability for anyone to work from anywhere in Dubuque County at any time of day that they choose. That's the new world. As you know, Greater Dubuque Development accepted the task several years ago to help the Greater Dubuque region cross that digital divide that existed between the haves and the have-nots. Our approach has been to use in public and private collaboration to accelerate builds and reduce costs for both the private and the public sectors. The city of Dubuque has been phenomenal in making this possible. We have been successful by every measure. We could not have done it without the city and a team of professionals that we're proud to work with in engineering and your IT division. And we could not have done it without our private partners that now include, in alphabetical order, Bernard Telephone, Cascade Communications, Central Broadband, CenturyLink, Lumen, Comelec, Imon Communications, Maquoketa Valley, REC, MV Link, Mediacom, Sand Prairie, United Private Network, Windstream, and Wisconsin Internet Network. Remember, just 6 years ago, we had 2 providers in Dubuque, and we had a number of neighborhoods that had no decent access. So, if you look at the map before you, to your left, you'll see the colors of Imon Communications' multi-year, multi-million-dollar build-out of high-speed fiber internet in Dubuque. On the right, you'll see the results of MV Links, that's Maquoketa Valley REC, multi-year, multi-million-dollar build-out of high-speed internet in Dubuque County. We're actively working with Imon as they build out with Dubuque's growth. We're actively working with MV Link as they build in to help close the gaps where urban meets rural. We are close, but we will not rest until every single household in this region has the ability to have quality, affordable broadband. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. And one more item, we light candles under the picture of David Lyons, who we contract with. You know well, he's been our champion on bringing 21st century broadband to the citizens of Dubuque. We owe him a great deal of thanks.
Thanks for mentioning that. Dave's been essential to our progress here for sure. Questions? Discussion? Okay. Thanks for using that extra few minutes to be able to finish that presentation for us. Well, with that, there's no further business in this work session, so we will be adjourned until 6:30.